Hi, welcome to the show. I'm Ivory and this is Roz. And today's topic is the truth about deja vu. Before we get started, we want to say hello to our listeners in Avondale, Arizona. Wow, thank you so much for tuning in and supporting the show. I feel for you. I worked in Avondale for about a year, which meant I had to drive on the 101 twice a day. Indy 500. So, but Avondale is a lovely place and they have really fun things there. So thanks for tuning in. We love having you here. Let's talk about what is deja vu. I think most people know, but they maybe would have trouble putting that into words. This is just sort of one person's description of it. It's a name given to that unsettling feeling you get when you feel you've been in the exact same place before, like you have been with these people in this place, hearing these words before. And for a few seconds, you're convinced that you've lived that moment previously to the point where it almost feels like you can predict what's going to happen next. Then just as quickly as that feeling comes, it goes, and then you're back to what your normal reality. So there's a lot of theories about this. And Roz was just saying before the show started, she's always had her own theory about it. There are a lot of theories. We're actually going to start with Roz's theory and then go into some of the more interesting, less embraced theories, however, more fun theories that we like to talk about. So, Roz, tell us your theory. I'd love to hear this.
Well, my theory on this has always been that, we are taught and we are cultured to think that everything about time is linear. Seconds, minutes, hours, everything goes in a line. I don't think time's like that at all. I think time is just like wide open and infinitesimal, going in all directions, overlaying like different layers of time and space. That's all going on at the same time. And deja vu is where somehow we have moved forward in time and we experience an event that is in our future. And then when we actually have that experience, we're shocked to discover that it's the same experience that we had before. And then we kind of freak out a little bit, I think. But we also start to realize like, hey, I've been here before, I've done this before. And that can only be that you are really going ahead in time.
That is one of the wild theories that I personally lean towards. And it's not because I'm a wild thinker, but it's because I have a very open mind. And you and I both have had so many interesting experiences in our entire lives that how can you be closed-minded to theories such as this when you've experienced it? So have you had some personal experiences that led you to come to this conclusion, Roz?
Well, I had a lot of experiences when my kids were little. And that's, I think, when I really started to think about it and confirm my theory on this, my idea on this, because I would be experiencing something with one of my children, and I would have already done this with them. Whatever the process was, whatever was happening, I would have already done that whole scenario. And I started realizing, like, wow, this is happening more often than I ever expected. I mean, I'd had some experiences when I was younger before I started really going, I used to call my life the 4-ring circus because, I had 4 small children crammed into a space of 5 years. So, I mean, it was just a lot of energy and a lot of things going on. And as I started having these deja vu situations, I was thinking, well, I already did this. What? Now I have to do it again? But I think the value of that is the realization that if you get to practice something or you get to experience something ahead of quote unquote time, ahead of the actual event, what a blessing. I mean, you've already handled it. You've already got it under control. It also, for me, sometimes served as a little bit of a warning situation because, trying to keep everybody focused on the same page and not doing something dangerous since they all wanted to, they were all really athletic and really busy, and they all wanted to be riding skateboards and jumping bikes. And so I think it sometimes served a purpose for me that I would be thinking ahead, like, oh, let's do this instead, or let's change how we're doing this, or whatever. So it had a value.
It does. And, it's been interesting because I would say over the last 6 years, particularly, I'm noticing not only for myself, but for people I know and clients talking about increased experiences of deja vu. And I first noticed it with my clients because I would stop and say, did I already tell you this? And it's not like, yes, I do have a lot of the same tools and the same things that I suggest but what would feel very familiar is the entire conversation, not just what I was saying at that moment, but what led up to it. And each conversation with a client is vastly different. So it was just so weird. Like I'd stop and I'm questioning myself. Did I already send this to them? Did I already suggest this? And they're like, no, we haven't talked about it. I'm like, and I vividly remember doing it. But then other people started telling me they're having a lot of deja vu, and I started noticing in my personal life. So something's happening with the time continuum, something, or we're just it's being made very obvious to us that it's not linear.
And getting less linear all the time.
And I think that's good because it's very constraining the way it is.
The other thing I think is that, people want to have the sense of security that everything is going to function exactly as it always has in terms of time, space. Nothing could be further from the truth right now. I mean, things are kind of really just popping and hopping every day.
I feel like things are shifting on so many levels.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about this, Roz, like how things are shifting all around us. But lately, I agree with you. Like it feels like big shifts are happening that people who would not normally see it are seeing it and feeling it.
It's pretty, actually, I think it's kind of pretty magical because people who have been stuck in their mind in the old paradigm, kind of the old rules, quote unquote, they're being shown very consistently that this is out the window. We're in a whole new time, energy, and metaphysical process here, and it's changing daily for a lot of people. And the awakening, it's really funny because a lot of people will come to see me or will get on a virtual session and they'll say, well, really like kind of strange things have been happening. And I go, oh, you're in the awakening. They go, yes. So they're aware. I mean, people are reading, people are being exposed. There's so much on the internet for people to open their minds and explore their minds. And I think the deja vu thing is really a pretty well kind of established event that people can kind of get comfortable with, in a sense. Like it's okay if you're going ahead in time. Nothing bad is happening, nothing, nothing, there's no resulting shift that really affects you in any kind of negative way. It's just a little part of that wake-up call.
And I've never met a person who hasn't experienced deja vu. If you're out there and you haven't, let us know. But personally, I haven't met that. I'm going to go to one of these. The first theory I think is really fascinating is the parallel universe theory. to explain deja vu. And I do believe that there are parallel universes because I've had some wild experiences. And why not? Why not there be parallel universes, right? So it's the idea that we live among millions of parallel universes containing millions of versions of ourselves, carrying out our own lives with a diversity of different possibilities. And that's always been an exciting thought. I mean, it's kind of like traveling without going anywhere, but deja vu could contribute to this theory because believers in this theory claim the human experience of deja vu can be explained by considering that unsettling feeling of having lived a moment before as like a short crossover with a parallel universe. So like you and another universe are like meeting at a set point briefly. I like that thought. That's very, it rings true for me. And I'm not a scientist. My background's in the field of mental health and now spirituality, but so I'm not a scientist, but it definitely rings true. And I know, Roz, you're the same thing. Like when you hear something, you read something and it's true or it has truth in it, like you get a very strong sensation about it.
Yeah.
So that would mean that whatever you're doing while you're experiencing that deja vu, a parallel version of you is doing it in a different universe at the same time, creating an alignment between the two universes. Although it's intriguing, it's not backed up with much scientific evidence, I think basically because our science can't match that theory yet. Like we don't have the ability to explore parallel universes yet that we know of. But the multiverse theory, which states that millions of universes form randomly side by side with only a few exceptional forming with the accessories to support life like ours, could help to assist that hypothesis. And I don't know, what do you think about that, Roz, the parallel universe theory?
I think that as a theory, as a concept, it really kind of makes sense. It's a situation where I don't know if anyone has ever had the experience of it's almost like you have two mirrors back to back and you're seeing forward and backward at the same time. And I think of that as being the parallel universe concept, really, like different layers, different frequency layers, and our energy and our spirit can transcend and move through these different layers or be in multiple places at the same time, multiple frequencies. Pretty, it's physics. I mean, it would make sense. So
Would. And that description reminds me of old times, back in the old days, going to county fairs and to the fun house and standing in like that house of mirrors in the middle of it where you're seeing yourself from all these different angles and it's all you. When you move, it moves, they move because there's so many versions of you. And if each one of those was a parallel universe, it's still you. So I love that theory. I actually think that's one of the best theories that's considered a fringe theory, but it's gaining more popularity over time as people wake up. So the next one would be the hologram theory. Are you familiar with that one, Roz?
I'm not.
It's interesting. It's the idea that our memories are formed like three-dimensional images, which means they have the structured frame network to them. And it suggests the entire formation of memory can be reconstructed by one element. And therefore, if one stimulus in your environment, whether it's a sound, a smell, a sight, reminds you of a previous moment you've experienced, the entire memory can be recreated by your mind like a hologram image. And this explains deja vu by suggesting that when something in our current environment reminds us of our past, our brain makes this connection to the past event and produces a hologram of the memory to make it feel like we are reliving it. And the reason we don't, in this theory, the reason we don't recognize the memory after the moment of deja vu passed is because the stimulus that triggers the formation of a hologram memory is often hidden from our conscious perception. So you might experience deja vu when picking up a can because the feeling of the metal is the same as a bike handle you once had. I mean, it's just interesting. I I never heard of that one before, and I've been thinking about it since I came across this one.
Yeah, it's pretty thought provoking. I mean, as you kind of let it expand in your mind, pretty
You
thought
know
provoking.
why I like it? Think about how visceral it is, a smell. Like for a lot of people, smelling a lemon, smelling fresh baked bread, smelling fresh coffee, things like that can really evoke it's like you're back in a memory. So that's what made me really pay attention to that one, was like, wow, I can see how a sound, a smell, a sight, a feeling of something could bring you back to an early memory, but your conscious mind isn't understanding the connection.
Yeah,
So it could bring back a feeling very strongly. Like a lot of people associate, this has been studied, the smell of fresh baked bread makes people feel comfortable, comforted, safe.
yeah. Like, you know, eh, then just thinking back to my childhood, I mean, I can really see that evolution of, some certain smell of some food that my grandmother made or my mother made or something, and bringing that just all forward.
Yeah, so I think there's some basis there. It just seems like that's another like one. For all we know, it's a combination of several of these theories. So the next one, Roz and I like this topic, precognitive dreams. It makes sense. And you even said earlier, you said something that kind of alluded to that. But the warning, like it's a warning to you. How has deja vu been like a warning to you, Roz?
I see, I never did dream much, it seemed like, but I vision a lot. And I think that's part of the deja vu experience too. And sometimes those visions for me are a precursor to needing to take some kind of evasive action in my life. Either, making sure I'm not at a certain place at a certain time, making sure I notice it actually most in that circumstance when I'm driving, because, I grew up in Southern California, going down the freeway at, 70 miles an hour, and all the other cars are all around you. So even paying attention, sometimes you can't predict what another driver is going to suddenly decide to do.
No, you can't.
However, if you've had this deja vu experience and little warning of, hey, you know, watch that lane over there, or watch that guy over there, and be paying attention. And I've experienced that a lot. I mean, probably to the point of avoiding a lot of accidents.
I have too. I've heard a voice say, drop back or change lanes.
Yes,
And
move
and then
over.
something happened. But I could have used that little voice in California a week and a half ago when I had my grandson in the car with me, and we're on a 6-lane road between Newport Beach and Burbank, and a car just came out of nowhere and tried to sideswipe us. That was a scary moment. We're both like, ah, ah, ah. However, I want
Normal
to
day.
say these
Normal day on
precognitive
the
dreams, like
freeway.
that, you have a deja vu moment. I can say, I honestly think I have reason to think that some of my deja vu is based in precognitive dreams. I do dream every night very vividly. And I remember my dreams and I write down the things that seem important. And there's been times that something happened that was a deja vu, and I went back and looked in my journal, and I had written about that in it from a dream. And I didn't think that was the important part of the dream, but I mentioned it. And then it ended up being that it happened in real life. So sometimes I have to ask myself, if it feels like I've done this or said this before, did I dream it, and go look in my journal. Another reason to keep a journal of your interesting dreams, and even if they're not interesting, if they seem important.
Very true. I mean, I think journaling has a very powerful place
I'm
with
always referring back
connection
to
with the
mine.
deja vu.
Oh my gosh, it's impossible. I mean, even with remembering my dreams, it's impossible to remember every dream I've had off the top of my head. Like when I wake up, I remember what happened. and I write enough to write them down, but I don't remember every dream I've had now. My gosh, I think I've mentioned it before that when I was young, I called my dreams my other life because they were so vivid. And I would ask my mom, what happened to the presents at the foot of my bed? She's like, what presents? And I said, the presents that were there. And she goes, there were never presents there. I would go, oh, that must have been in my other life. She did not like that, but that's how vivid my dreams were. She didn't like when I'd say, human beings are so weird. Well, you're a human being. No, I'm not. We
I
talked
just
about
happen to
that
be here
recently.
right now.
I don't know what I was, or am, but at that age, I was darn sure I wasn't a human being. So how about reincarnation? That's another one that's very interesting. Have you experienced that moment in another life?
I think I possibly could actually have some very interesting examples of that if I really sat down and thought about them, because I have been at various times in my life able to look back and clearly see what I was doing in a previous lifetime. And I think those things do repeat. There is a lot of validity in the theory of history repeating itself. And maybe we just see that in a deja vu kind of format, but it's still there, especially the lessons. I think if you don't get the lessons, hey, they're just going to keep happening.
You
So
hear about people being in cycles in this lifetime, and it could be like constantly getting in toxic relationships, things of that sort. But there's cycles that go lifetime to lifetime, and it is involving lessons. And I can see how you could have a conversation or a situation that triggers a past life memory that where you had a similar conversation situation and you haven't broken that cycle yet. So that one really struck for me. I don't have the luxury of saying, oh, I don't believe in reincarnation, because it's been put in my face so many times from so many people, including my little girl when she was like 4 or 5 years old. Just so many wild things happening that I don't have that. I don't have that ability to say that I'm 100% sure reincarnation exists. So if you think about the research done on this, I think I mentioned before that Dr. Gary Schwartz at University of Arizona, who's one of the world's leading authorities on afterlife studies, he and others have determined that every human being alive has lived at least 1,000 lifetimes. So if you think about everything that's happened to you so far in your current life, times at least 1,000, can you see how you'd have similar situations and conversations? How could you not, over 1,000 plus lifetimes? So there's so much to pull from that's going to trigger. I think it's like a small past life memory, even if you don't recognize it as such. So that one was really interesting. Now I saved the best for last, and you guys are going to be interested in this one. A glitch in reality, now commonly known in social media as a glitch in the matrix. I bet you like this theory, Roz.
I think this is just ties completely to what we were talking about initially. The lack of the, theory of linear time.
Mm-hmm.
A glitch in the matrix. It's a time thing.
It is. I don't think we're living in a matrix like the movie The Matrix with Keanu Reeves. Hi, Keanu, love you. But I do think that reality isn't what we think reality is. I think we are please don't get upset. I was telling somebody about this recently, and I kind of feel like maybe it's a little out there, but I feel like we are avatars in a human body. This is the avatar we chose, and we're living this human existence, and all these people around us are in avatars living their human existence, and we're all here learning our lessons and trying to be better souls. And it helps when things get crazy to distance a little bit, because this is it's like a giant video game that we're in here. and you're an avatar playing the role of Roz. I'm an avatar playing the role of Ivory in this lifetime. Then we go back to the other side to our real life, and we talk about what happened in this video game we call life. And then we go back to play another game, and it's a different avatar. And so there could easily be glitches in this. There can be glitches in the reality you created for yourself to learn soul lessons. There can be glitches in what I think it's those man-made constructs breaking down that are causing these glitches. Do you watch those glitches in the Matrix videos, Roz? I know you're up late at night watching YouTube videos. They're
Yeah,
very interesting. They're on
every once
TikTok
in a
too.
while one will come up, because actually what I generally am watching a lot is paranormal events that people have documented on video. And I find that stuff fascinating. But that's the only format within which I would occasionally get like a video of the glitch, the
I
Matrix
looked them
glitch.
up when I heard about it because, you know, you and I've talked about this whole thing of being a mystic and how we see things. And I told you about the experience where I was in a local Mexican restaurant by myself eating a meal, and the table to my left was completely empty, and there were foods, plates, the tables were all pushed together to seat like 20 people. And obviously, you know, people had left and they were needed to clean up the table. 2 minutes later, I looked over and the tables are all separated. There's people sitting and they're halfway through a meal, all different people. Like there's no way they could have cleared that mess, separated the tables, seated people, and they could be halfway through their meal in 2 minutes. So I started thinking, maybe that's the kind of thing, like a glitch in the Matrix could be mystic experiences. It could be seeing other dimensions. It could be seeing these parallel universes. But I'm very fascinated with the glitch, the Matrix. Sometimes they're silly. People post things that I don't think are really glitches, but it's their experience. And, you have your experience, I have mine. But some people hypothesize that there are moments when UFOs can be sighted because Deja Vu opens up bridges between different realities. So just another thought on that. So those are all the fringe theories, but still gaining more traction as the years go by, because people, I think they become more open as science develops too, as like the super colliders are happening that supposedly, are opening up tears in dimensions, tears in time reality. It's interesting. We shall see what happens with that. We have more to talk about. There's a lot more theories we want to tell you about. We're going to continue that over on our Patreon page, which is Sedona Soul Sisters. You can join for free for a week and enjoy all the exclusive content. We have videos, articles, quizzes, classes that you can watch there and see the end of this show. And in the meantime, we hope that you tune in next Friday. Our topic is another fun one, sleep paralysis. We're getting suggestions, great suggestions. Thank you, listeners, for doing that. In the meantime, we hope you have an enlightening week.